Broadcasting live. It's America's longest running talk show on computers. It's Computer America, bringing you the biggest names in technology with guest interviews, new products, and your emails. Listen live at computeramerica.com on any device around the world. Email the show at live@computeramerica.com or find us on social media. Be sure to check out our website for contests, giveaways, show notes, live video stream, podcasts, and more. You're listening to Computer America.
Hello and welcome into the Computer America Show. We are the nation's longest running, nationally syndicated radio talk show on computers and technology. Thank you for joining us. I'm your host, Ben Crossman, and I hope all of you are having a fantastic day as we are going to get things kicked off here with an entire show. We're doing an entire show with Sandy Berger, and she is Computer America's consumer electronics expert, as well as the writer and, of course, owner of CompuKiss.com. So you definitely want to check that out after the show when we, if you want to find out more about Sandy Berger, what she does and what she writes and her reviews, thoughts, things like that, as well as many other publications that she is, in fact, a part of. But in the meantime, though, we will go ahead and, of course, let me just try something here. And yeah, we'll go ahead and, of course, bring her on in just a moment, which we just connected. So with that being said, everyone, welcome into the Computer America Show. Before we get started, computeramerica.com. That's where you'll find everything and anything having to do with today's show. So be that show notes, be that links to articles, links to products, anything like that, you can find it in one place. Also, be sure to check out the live video stream, which can also be found at twitch.tv/Computer America, and the social media contest, which is brought to you by Logitech. Now, with all that being said, why don't we go ahead, just bring on Sandy Berger and get today's show started. So, once again, writer for CompuKiss and a lot of other publications, and Computer America's resident consumer electronics expert. Sandy, welcome back on to Computer America. How you doing?
Thanks, Ben. I'm doing well.
I am glad and I'm glad that you're doing well. Glad that you could join us. Hopefully everything's going well since we last talked to you.
It is. I actually had to have a little bit of surgery on my foot, but I'm healing and feeling pretty good.
Very, very awesome. You'll be able to go to that track meet soon. That's great to hear.
Well, I will. I'm hoping that I can go to CES this year. That's really the problem for me, but because it's so much walking. But we'll see how it goes.
It is a lot of walking. So yeah, hopefully you're feeling 100% here soon. But in the meantime, happy that you could be here. Before we get started, why don't you go ahead and tell everyone, kind of what your history with technology is and why you feel comfortable coming on our show and talking about electronics.
Well, I love computer electronics. I mean, I just love the whole situation of where we're going with technology and what's going to be happening in the future. In the past, I've been everything from a computer programmer to a computer consultant, and also a writer. I do a lot of technical writing, and so therefore I review products. And the main thing that I try to do is to be honest about it, not to be prone to one category or the other, or one company or the other. So I'd try to give a very honest review and just keeping up with the technology.
And one area that you seem to really be gravitating towards, which, judging by the strategy from a lot of companies, digital assistants, smart assistants. So, if you could touch on that real quick, what drew you to smart assistants, and I guess why do you see so much potential in them?
Well, because it's the thing of the future, and because they can do so much for a person. Like I said just now that I had surgery on my foot this week, and I had to stay in bed for 3 days. Okay.
Hmm.
Well, that's not such a bad thing, except, you can't get out, you can't do things. But here I had the Google Assistant and Alexa both there to turn on the TV, turn on the lights, read books to me. And it was eye opening as to how much they can really do for you. And I think for people in the future, it's just going to be more and more. Matter of fact, there's been information that's come out recently that majority of U.S. households are going to have a smart speaker within 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, we're kind of eyeballing that article now. Why don't we go ahead and get to that a little bit later? Let's talk about the new smart display that you've had your hands on. So, when it comes to digital assistants and that kind of thing, I think a lot of people have them either on their phone to some lesser degree, but really the ones that that you've been talking about lately are standalone units. They're built in completely into their own little speaker, microphone kind of array setup. And I guess most people would really recognize Amazon's offerings, Google's offerings, to a smaller extent, Apple's offerings, the main players. But you had a chance to review a product from Lenovo, who you really don't think of as, smart speaker, but yeah, I guess they're making a push.
I guess that's what I meant when I said that more and more companies are getting involved and more people will be buying these devices just because they can.
Hmm.
Um, the product that I've been reviewing and really kind of liking is the Lenovo Smart Display. And what this is a Google Assistant with a screen. Now, Amazon has gone the opposite way. Amazon has come out with their own smart displays and their own Echo devices, but they don't have other people developing hardware for them. Google has taken a different stance and has opened up their ecosystem for other people to go ahead and create devices that work with the Google Assistant.
Right. I mean that makes sense, but I'm sorry, I missed a little bit there. Like Apple said that they're really locking it down. You really have to integrate HomeKit and that kind of thing. But Google and Amazon, to I think the same degree, really really want you. They want to come to you. They don't want you to have to kind of really twist yourself into a knot to get your skill or whatever on their ecosystem. So you're saying not just for people developing skills, but now for people trying to implement the software, the digital assistant itself, Google is going a step further, even beyond Amazon.
That's right. That's
Okay.
right. Amazon is doing the software and hardware themselves, and Google Assistant is going to be coming out on other devices. This one by Lenovo is out there already. JBL has one that's just come out, and I think Sony has one coming up that I saw at CES last year as well.
Hmm.
So what they're doing is they have different products and different companies creating these Google Home devices, but the Google Home devices have screens, which makes all the difference in the world.
So I think something that we can kind of start with and then work our way into the product itself. You've reviewed a couple of these units, and obviously now one from a completely different company. Before we even talk about what Lenovo is offering, talk about in your mind what really makes a smart speaker stand out. Because you could think that it's just an app on a phone, and they're just building hardware to give a home to the app. But is it the speaker quality? Is it the mic quality? Is it what makes a smart speaker in general a good smart speaker?
I mean, all of those things. it's just like anything else. You have to see in total what you get with the device. Right now, the two operating systems are Google and Amazon. So that's number one. And you have to think, is Alexa smarter or is Google smarter as far as answering questions and giving you information? Then the device itself, if you're going to use it for music, that is very important. How's the sound quality on it? And they all have different qualities of sound. Some are adjustable, some aren't. Some have more bass, some have less. So that's something that's very important. And now we've added another thing. So we're talking about devices that have screens.
Hmm.
And again, you have to make sure that the screen is readable to you, that you can see it in bright light, or depending on where you're going to use it, that screen is going to be worthwhile and it's going to fit in.
And of course that makes a lot of sense. And I guess for the screen version, we've seen a lot of them being pushed towards, I don't know, into the kitchen. Saying that this is a good spot for the kitchen, or blah blah blah. Would you say that the kitchen is the only place that you could have a screen? Because I guess kind of like a living room, den, family room kind of deal would have a television already, so the screen might be a little bit, might be a bit redundant. Maybe the bedroom, people don't like having screens in the bedroom for some reason. Where, like, in what situation would you consider getting a screen over just a traditional smart speaker?
Definitely the kitchen, and we'll talk about that because cooking with it, using recipes on it is phenomenal. But I think it could fit into any room that you want it on. It is not a television. It doesn't replace a television,
Hmm.
at least the one that I'm reviewing, and we can talk about that too because Amazon has something that does or can replace a television, and that's called the Fire Tablet with the show mode, and that is a full-blown tablet, so you can actually put an app on it and watch TV on it, which
Oh,
is very useful for a lot of rooms. This is a little bit different. Matter of fact, let me tell you a little bit more about the Lenovo Smart Display.
sure.
First of all, it's very good looking. Now, the first device that with the display that came out was the Echo Show. The Echo Show had a 7-inch display and was just a chunky device. The first time I sat it on my desk, I was like, what is this? It looked like something that came from the 50s. Big, chunky, dark black. I didn't like that, the Echo Show at all as far as the design. Now, Lenovo has come out with two smart displays. One is 8 inches and one is 10 inches as far as the screen goes. Both are extremely good looking. The 10-inch one, which is the one that I'm reviewing, actually has a bamboo back and a white front, and it's curved on the back, and you can set it either way, horizontally or vertically. Very, very impressive. When I first saw it, I was saying to myself, this device is not adjustable. I mean, as far as, taking the screen back and forth, how
Right.
am I going to see it? Placed it on my kitchen countertop. I can see it when I'm standing. I can see it when I'm sitting. They did an excellent job with it, and the screen is phenomenal.
Yeah.
Now, the
Oh,
8-inch version is smaller and it's black rather than white and fabric, so it is a little different.
right. The only thing that I'm kind of seeing right off the bat, you mentioned the design, and I was kind of off put because I thought this was going to be another chunky thing. For anyone out there watching the video portion, you can kind of see it, but it's an 8 or 10 inch tablet. That's kind of what you're used to, but then kind of jutting off to the side, looks like to the left of the screen. There's like a speaker, and the part where the speaker is kind of sticks out back. Obviously, gives it stability when it's standing up on end, and I guess that depth allows some decent speakers and not just some little tinny, small speakers that obviously won't do you much good if you're watching or listening.
Right, right. And you mentioned you called it a tablet. And that's one thing I'm going to correct you on, Ben,
Sure.
because this is not a tablet.
Looks like a tablet,
Um,
but
it
you're right.
looks like a
Right.
tablet.
Right.
It's almost as portable as a tablet. It's something you can pick up and move from room to room if you like. Um, but it is not a tablet, meaning you can't surf the web on it. You can't put apps on it. It is actually for a different purpose, and that purpose is to display the Google Assistant.
Mm. The Google,
Now,
yeah, and
yeah, that's interesting, isn't it, when you think about it? How do you display the Google Assistant? Well, if you have a regular Google device and you ask it for the weather, it'll give you the weather. On the display like this one, you can she'll not only tell you the weather, but will show you on the screen, which, believe it or not, is much more useful than just hearing it. Because if you ask Google to give you the weather for the next week, your ears are glued to what that device is saying and what day is it, and
right.
but when you see it on the screen and it says Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, hey, it's like you just looked it up on your big computer, and the device still tells you what it is verbally, but you can see it on the screen as well. Same thing with like directions. You want directions or to know how your drive is going to be today. That all appears on the screen, which makes it extremely useful. Matter of fact, I was kind of blown away by how useful it is. Um, I didn't think that having a display would be that great, but one thing Google does and is has added things to the display that are really useful, and they have blown Amazon out of the water as far as that goes.
Well, yeah,
The display on, yeah, go ahead.
and yeah, that was that was one of the things, was that when these first speakers first hit the market, obviously with the Amazon Echo, they did not have a screen, and it was kind of news when someone first put a screen on one of these things, and that was different. But now you're saying it's not just a screen so that you can watch YouTube or something, but the screen is utilized to actually display information that you would otherwise just listen to on others. And I guess for what smart speakers were first designed to be, you're saying that this is obviously a step forward, and you think this is going to be better.
Yes, this is an added dimension. This is not something you're going to want to have in every room of the house,
Mm-hmm.
but it does add a dimension to it that is an extremely useful dimension. For instance, if you're playing music, you can ask for the lyrics, you can see the lyrics on the screen. We mentioned putting it in the kitchen, and it is the perfect kitchen device. But when you call up a recipe, you say, ask Google to find a recipe for avocado soup or whatever it is, it'll come up with 3 or 4 or more things that you can touch on the screen, or you can tell her which one you want, and they show you the recipe. And then what's so well done and much better done than on the Amazon device
Right.
is that you can go through step by step, or you can look at the ingredients again. You can tell her to go back. You can tell her to go forward, to pause. You can use your hand to scroll on the screen, but almost everything in the recipe area you can do with your voice, which is really pretty cool.
Now, this is something that Google has been working on with their just generic google.com search engine, is that you search for something and you don't have to search anymore for, very specific keywords and things like that. You can even ask Google a question, and again, still speaking of the search engine, it will return something that is maybe an answer to your question. Like it'll highlight, a particular 30-second segment on a YouTube video. Like it doesn't even recommend the whole thing, just gets right to the point. And
Right.
and I want to ask you, do you think that that's kind of the leg up that Google has over Amazon? Is that Amazon, obviously they're trying to make it a portal for you to integrate yourself into the Amazon ecosystem, whereas Google, I guess everyone has a Gmail account, everyone uses Google.com. People are already using Google. The question is, how does Google get the relevant information to you faster? And it seems like that's what you're kind of praising this new this new device for. And that's kind of Google's specialty, is getting you information and getting it quickly and correctly.
That's right. That's right. All Google devices have a new mode that's just been online for maybe 3 months or so, called a conversation mode. And Amazon has something similar, but Google's is much better. And what it is when you enable this conversation mode, you can then ask a question, and Google will keep listening for a follow-up question. So if you ask, who's the president of the United States, Google will answer, and then you don't have to say, "Hey, Google," again or anything like that. You just say, how tall is he? And Google knows that you're talking about the president because it's a follow-up question.
Right.
So this is something that's much better on Google than on Amazon, and also something that they take advantage of when you have a screen like this Lenovo device. So if you ask the same question or any question, you'll see the question printed across a screen, which is very good because you know exactly what the device heard you say. But then at the bottom of the screen, there'll be other things like, say you ask what the weather is today, and then at the bottom of the screen, it'll say the weather tomorrow, weather next week. You have your choice to further the conversation, basically. And that's what Google excels at and does very, very well with this Lenovo device.
I'm kind of curious on how they handle, kind of not exactly long-term events, but obviously there's a hurricane coming for North Carolina. Sandy, I know that you're in North Carolina, so I hope you're all good for the hurricane coming. But
hope so too.
Yeah, I'm kind of wondering like how these digital assistants, like, are they smart enough to know, how is, for some reason I will call this Hurricane Irma. I've not been paying attention to it at all.
Florence.
There we go, Florence. And I'm wondering if you could be like, how is Hurricane Florence looking today? And it would pull up, that kind of information because, in a week, that information will no longer be relevant to anyone. And a week ago, that was that wasn't found anywhere. So I'm wondering how it handles special events like that.
It handles those events very well. Major events are in the news and are already on both Google and Amazon. And the thing is that you can ask for things like events like, hey, what happened in the Cubs game last night?
Mm-hmm.
And she'll tell you the score. Both of them will do that. And if you go back 6 months or so, they weren't able to do that. Now, you can actually go into the apps and choose your favorite teams that you want to follow. Say you want to follow the Chicago Bears or whatever it is. You just put that in there, and she'll have even more information about that. So on this device, if I ask what happened in the Cubs game yesterday, she can not only show me what the score was and tell me what the score was, but she offers to give additional information. Would you like to see a play-by-play on that? Would you like to see some spectacular thing that happened in the game? And so they're keeping up with this, and that's one of the reasons that they're so useful.
Yeah, it sounds like they, it's certainly and that's a point that we've had for a while now, is that they are becoming more and more useful. It's not that, they stay stagnant and you have to wait for, the next big developer push. No, it's just over time, it will slowly add skills that you'll realize one day that you kind of like and you'll have access to. So, and by the way, speaking of the Lenovo Smart Display, I was, kind of going through the website, reading some of these. I don't think you touched on the voice match. I don't know what that is. Whenever I think of a digital assistant, I think of Alexa or, Google. I don't even think Google has a voice. It's a pretty good, compared to 5 years ago. It's insanely good, human, kind of human-like voice. But what's this voice match? Like, can you change the voice at all? Does it speak to you? How's that?
Well, that's not actually what voice match is. Voice match is going through just a few simple sentences so that Google or Alexa can pick out your voice. Okay?
Oh.
And that's what voice match is. And so therefore on our Google devices, we haven't actually done that. And the reason is because if I do that and I ask Google for my appointments, she'll only give me my appointments. Where on Amazon, I have both my appointments and my husband's appointments together. I know this gets a little bit confusing, but in any case,
you would think that there'd be a workaround where you could, and this could either be through the calendar app, whatever I'm assuming you're using Google Calendar, but yeah, that's there has to be a workaround for that.
Yeah, this is something that, again, these devices get easier and better, and if it wasn't on there yesterday, it might be on there tomorrow. But talking back about voices, how you can choose the voices. Google has a wide variety of voices. Whoops, she heard me. She heard me that time. And those voices include several men's voices, British accents, women's voices. I think that there are up to 7 or 8 different voices that you can choose. And so basically, I have my Google devices in a masculine voice and Alexa devices in a feminine voice. And that, in my mind, helps me keep them separate. Now, one of them, and I think it was Google, just announced that they are now available in Italian, French, Spanish, and a few other languages. So you can actually have your device be bilingual. You can talk to it half in English and half in Spanish, and it will understand you.
That is impressive, and really that has come a long way. I'm not. Has there been any updates on accents and things like that? Because accents used to really trip up voice assistants.
Well, they've just gotten better about the accents. So, Google doesn't really, and Amazon doesn't really record your voice. But what they do is they look at your voice and they can tell a Southern accent from a Mexican accent or from this accent and that accent. And they learn as you go on and you correct things. They learn. So they just get better and better. And that's one point, Ben, that I think is phenomenal. And what really drew me into these devices is that you don't have to buy a new one every 6 months.
You don't have to buy a new one, and yet you have like 4 or 5 new ones.
I keep buying them. You're right. You're right. But you don't have to. My original Amazon Echo device, which is now 2015.
Yeah, something like that.
About 3 years old. It still does not only what it did when I got it, but it does all this additional stuff as well. Like now you can make a phone call on it. You couldn't do that 3 years ago. You could have your appointments on it, which you couldn't do 3 years ago. And the thing is, it doesn't cost anything additional. Now, those of us who have grown up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, we're used to this built-in obsolescence. Remember when a computer cost $3,000 and basically you had to buy a new one every 2 or 3 years because it couldn't handle anything that it handled before? Well, these devices have been built so that they can improve upon in time, and it doesn't cost anything extra. To me, that is a phenomenal thing.
That of course speaks to the idea of cloud computing, both of which Google and Amazon. I mean, if you want two companies that are going to really push for things to be hosted in the cloud and to kind of work not just on hardware. Google and Amazon both run Amazon Web Services and Google whatever theirs is. Both of them have a vested interest in cloud computing, which does exactly what you're saying. It's they can push those updates whenever they want, and you reap the benefits.
Right, and I think they've been extremely generous with their upgrades. So they've given people a lot, and part of that is the competition, because now Apple, well, the two we've been talking about, Amazon and
Google, right?
Google, with those two, and now we have Apple in the mix with their stuff. And Samsung's coming out with a Bixby device sometime this month, I believe.
I have zero hope for Bixby. Bixby, like we've talked about on the show before, Bixby works well if you speak Korean. Bixby does not work well if you speak English. And that's okay. I mean, of course, Computer America and a lot of the news that we cover is, U.S. centric. But, if it works for Koreans and it works over in Southeast Asia, then I'm okay with that. It's just, has such a long way to go for, for the U.S.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I've been watching Bixby for about a year now. I actually have Bixby on my Samsung phone.
Mhm.
And it has gotten better and it has gotten to understand things better. It'll be very interesting when their device comes out to see how far along they are.
I
Um,
am looking forward to that as well. Sandy, there's music playing in the background. When we come back, we're gonna, go a little bit deeper into the Lenovo Smart Display. Sandy has been reviewing it. She's been checking it out. Everyone, more Sandy Berger, Computist.com, and more Computer America right after this. Everyone, stay tuned.
Greece is cheap.
But the airfare costs a fortune.
Paris?
Not much closer, and again, airfare...
What about Puerto Vallarta?
Let's face it, flying anywhere is just too expensive.
Wait, what's this? Low-cost airlines.
With one call to low-cost airlines, you'll drastically slash your travel costs. We're talking insanely low airline prices to any of your favorite destinations. Where would you like to go? London, Rome, Costa Rica, Australia?
Wow, that's cheap.
So why wait? Call now to learn how crazy cheap it is to fly anywhere in the U.S. or international. Our prices are so low, we can't publish them. The only way to get them is to call to instantly hear the most amazing best deals on airline travel. It's that easy. So call now and start packing.
800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. 800-215-4461. That's 800-215-4461.
We are all Brother Wolf. 10 years ago, a group of locals banded together to create positive change. We took animals into our homes, held adoption events at local retailers, and talked to the community about our mission to help build a no-kill Asheville. A decade later, we have achieved so many victories for animals in need. There's been so much progress, yet there's still so much to do. As part of our year-long celebration, we encourage you to become a member of our special Compassionate Circle program. With a monthly donation of $10 or more, you will have behind-the-scenes access to the work we are doing at Brother Wolf. Our goal is to reach 1,000 members because we receive no government funding. Working together, we can help build and sustain no-kill communities. Learn more at compassionatecircle.bwar.org. We are a 501c3 tax-deductible organization.
And welcome back to the Computer America Show. It is 32 minutes past the hour as we continue on here. Sandy Berger, Computist.com, and of course we are talking about the Lenovo Smart Display, which is a different kind of entry into, into this arena because we've seen some. I think Bose put one out a little while ago. We've seen other entries into, I think Sonos put out a smart speaker as well. But now with Lenovo, we're really starting to see this idea that, you can innovate on the, on the design of it and still get all the functionality that, that you're kind of used to. And in some cases, better because you don't have this big chunky brick-like thing sitting on your counter. It's, sometimes it just works. So Sandy, again, thank you for continuing on. And yeah, so let's go ahead and keep talking about the different features. And, was there anything that really stood out? Because, we've seen smart speakers with screens. Was there anything that had Lenovo's twist on it? Was this was Lenovo, and you can only get this through Lenovo?
Well, I think the thing with Lenovo, what you can get through Lenovo is the hardware. This is just an exciting, elegant. It's a very elegant looking device. It's modern looking. The screen is fabulous. I mean, in a bright kitchen, no problem. Even in the sunlight, you can see it. It's a 1920 by 1200 resolution, but it's the brightness It's like 480 nits, which is the brightness, how they measure the brightness, and that is as bright as most very good laptops. So the screen is spectacular, and the music, the microphones are not as good as some. It's not bad. It'll hear you across the room, but the speakers are adequate, not spectacular, just a good speaker. Um, but that's the hardware, which is different and will be different when you see the JBL and the other ones that are coming out now. Um, the basis of this is all the Android Things operating system. So it's not a Windows operating system. It's not a Amazon operating system. It's this Android Things. So as Android Things gets improved, then the improvements will come down through this. So that's really what you're looking at when you're going to be looking at these different companies that are making the screen devices now. You'd be looking for the screen display, the sound quality, the looks of the device. But basically, it's going to be the same OS that runs it on all the devices.
Oh, whoa! And I should have scrolled through. I should have scrolled through the whole page as we were kind of talking, but I finally got to a little bit ways to the bottom. For the longest time, they had it orientated horizontally, and that seemed to be the way that they kind of intended it. But looks like you can also do it vertically, and it even has a built-in camera, which I don't think we've talked about. I don't know if you had a chance to try that as well, but you can orientate it vertically instead of horizontally, and I guess it's better for calls because, like a Skype call or like a FaceTime call, it would, it just looks a little bit better when you're, vertical. So,
right. And that would be nice if you could do FaceTime calls or Skype calls on this. You cannot.
Oh, yeah.
Right now, it only uses Google Duo, which is excellent. It's just that not only do you have to have a Google Duo to do a video call, but you have to have the person you're calling has to have Google Duo installed. Now, you can install that on your Apple device or your Android device without a problem, but not everybody has that available. When you talk about the orientation, yes, this thing does go up and down for video calls. Matter of fact, you have to use it in that format for video calls. However, everything else on the device uses the horizontal mode. I do believe that this is something that more people will be writing, what do you call them, skills or apps or whatever for this device, and then more people will be using it in the other vertical mode as well. Thing about the vertical mode that's very nice is it takes up less desktop space.
True.
But when you're in the horizontal mode, if you're looking at lyrics of songs or you're looking at a recipe or a YouTube video, the horizontal is better. Yeah. Now, you're right. It also has a camera, which we didn't talk about. It's got a 5-megapixel camera, which is more than adequate. Video calls look great. I think the video calls come in at about 720p, but on this small screen, that's absolutely all you need. It just looks great. Let's see, what else do we?
Well, and and this is something that I'm liking for smart speakers is that when you have it in I think it's when you have it in horizontal mode. You mentioned that's the only time the camera works. They have something here called True Block Privacy Shutter and Microphone Mute Button, so that you can mute the microphone, turn off the camera, and put a shutter over it. And this was the complaint that some people have. I'm sure some people listening. Why would you want to put something that someone else, be it Google the company, be it hacker the unknown person, be it government agency, whatever your flavor of paranoia is, why would you want to put a microphone and a camera in central locations in your house? So whether or not that's paranoid or justified, not going to have that conversation, but it looks like Lenovo has at least thought of it and put a little bit of effort.
They have, and you can just a button and you can turn off the camera, basically what you're doing, or to the microphone, which you probably don't want to do. But the thing is that Lenovo had thought about that, where the Echo Show has no way to turn off the camera separately. If you turn off the camera on the Echo Show, you also turn off the microphone. And you don't want to turn off the microphone because you want to talk to this thing and you want it to hear you. So that didn't make any sense to me, and I'm really glad that Lenovo did that. There are You can swipe up on the screen from the bottom because it's a touch screen. You can swipe from side to side. If you swipe from the bottom, you get to the settings where you can adjust the brightness and various things like that. You can also adjust all that with your voice. So there's a variety of different ways to do different things. And it's all very well thought out.
So some of the other smart speakers you mentioned, that you have mentioned on the show before, you've also considered that this one doesn't have the best speaker system. So consider using Bluetooth to connect a Bluetooth speaker to it. And hey, you kind of overcome that little oversight, and you get a better quality system as a whole if you just connect a Bluetooth speaker, which a lot of people have. Are there any, and now we're going to kind of get into the negatives. You mentioned, the microphone's okay, the speakers are adequate, as you said. What would you like to see improved? And would you recommend anything that the end user can do to help with that?
Well, definitely there are things that are on the list already. Right now, you can do Hulu and some other things like that, but you cannot do Netflix, which is very surprising because Netflix is usually the first thing that everybody goes for. I'm assuming that they're working on that because I think that is major. The drawback that you can only use Google Duo for video calls, I think is a big drawback, and there are other video call apps that could be integrated. So no Netflix. A big thing for me. And I would never put a Bluetooth speaker on this probably because the speaker is as good as most of my Bluetooth speakers. When I say it's an adequate speaker,
Right.
I mean I can listen to it. It fills the room. It's not like listening to an orchestra in your kitchen. However,
Well, and we're going to talk about price here in a second, but when it comes to smart speakers, and when you start to get up there in price, suddenly you're competing against like actually good speakers, like you said, the Google
Right.
Max and the Apple HomePod. Those
Yeah.
are good speakers.
Yeah, Google Max is spectacular. If anybody's looking for a device that gives you wonderful, wonderful sound and an assistant, it's the Google Max. But you're right. You can do this with just about anything. So, one thing I did want to mention, though, as far as music goes,
Sure.
is that this device doesn't hook up to your whole network as far as music goes. In other words, you ask it to play music, it will play music and it will sound good. However, if you tell it to play music everywhere, if you have your whole house system set up, this device won't go on that network. Ooh,
Yeah.
not good. Not good in particular because say you want to have this device in the kitchen, but you want to have the music through your whole house. It won't play with this device and every other device. So therefore, you'd have to have another little Google Home device in the kitchen. But if you have two Google Home devices in the kitchen, it won't know which one you're talking to. So that is something that I think they need to hopefully take care of quickly.
I'm trying to think why,
And I hope they
why,
can.
yeah, I'm trying to think why that oversight would happen. And I guess it's has to be kind of hardware side because the hardware doesn't sync with the other, Google default
I'm really not sure
options.
because this has Chromecast built in, so it has the Wi-Fi built in. Why it can't, it just doesn't show up in the Google Home app on your phone, so you can't put it into a category. In other
Right.
words, you can't tell it to play everywhere and have
Huh.
it play. So
Strange.
there is some reason. I noticed this happening on several other devices that were lesser quality and lesser price. But this being pricier, I thought they could overcome that.
Right. So
And
talk about the price because we haven't mentioned the price. Been very, very closed mouth about it. But yeah.
well, the price of the 10-inch is $250, and the 8-inch is going for about $200. Now, there's a difference between the two as far as sound quality and screen quality in particular. I mean, the difference in screen quality is worth the $50 if you want to buy the bigger one. Now that's not really a terrible price considering that the Apple HomePod, which doesn't have a screen, is more than either of these. The new one that just came out, it's called a LinkView by JBL, is only an 8-inch screen. It's more oval. I like this one better, but that one is going to be going for $250.
I see. Yeah, and 250, and I just tried it on, I just tried it on their online store. They're out of stock. I'm assuming that you've found this somewhere around like Best Buy or something like that, like in box stores.
I saw it only briefly. It has just come out. I was not able to really listen to it, but I saw a display unit. So,
okay.
It's like I said, it's oval. It's smaller, which might be good if you're putting it on, say, a nightstand. This device, because it's 12 inches wide, because of the speakers on the side, 12 inches wide, you're not going to fit this on your nightstand. Now, if you want it in your bedroom, you could obviously put it on the dresser because you'd be able to read it across the room. But the smaller one has something to say for it. If you want to buy an 8-inch one, if you want to say on a nightstand or a small table or something like that.
Right. And we were just checking out the JBL speaker as well. The main difference between that and the other, there's no reorientating this one. It simply lays, horizontally. And the JBL one has stereo speakers as opposed to a single speaker. So
right.
Maybe a bit of a better sound on that one, but still the same price. I mean, between the two, $250. Amazon Echo first came out. It was $100, I think, or something like that. I'm sure there was, cheaper prices for early adopters, but then they upped the price of that to like $130 or $150 or something. And then they made like, cheaper ones for like $40 or $50 that were much smaller and much less capable. And then they went up to like, $400 for like the Google Home Max or whatever. I mean, prices seem to be going all over the place.
That's right.
where would you say is kind of the sweet spot for someone who doesn't have one of these, wants to get into it? Do they start with the $40 one and wet their toes, or do they go serious and get the $150? Or what do you recommend?
I mean, if there's a serious buyer and they want to try it out, you can buy a Google Home, the little one, and the Amazon little one. You can get them for $35. So why not invest in one of each of those, test it out, see what kind of music they play. We wouldn't be testing for sound quality or anything like that, but to actually see what you like better. I talk to both of these devices, and they give me different answers for different questions, and it's just a way of how they orient it, how they look at it. I think Google answers questions better than Alexa, but maybe somebody else would think that Alexa is better than Google at answering questions, depending on the type of questions you ask. So why not start there? Because if you then decide you like Google better or you like Alexa better, you can buy a bigger device. And then you'll have two of those devices that can talk to each other and can play music together and all that. And one thing that these devices that we didn't really talk about that they do so well is they can all broadcast audio, your voice, through the whole system. So I have 4 Google Home devices. When I was in bed and I had to stay in bed, I could just say, Google broadcast this, and it would say, what do you want to broadcast? And I could say, ask my husband to bring me a glass of water. And that sound, my voice, would go out to the other 3 Amazon devices in the house, and obviously he would hear it someplace and could bring me what I needed. By the way, he was fantastic this week at taking care of me. I gotta
Good
say
stuff.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But anyway, that is something. Now,
That
yeah.
and I just have to say that we're one of the few households left in America maybe that have a traditional kind of phone system with handsets and things like that, and that's about the last thing because I have a cell phone so I can make phone calls and things like that.
Right.
But being able to I guess intercom people, without having to call the house phone or their cell phone. That's the last kind of useful thing I'm finding for my house phone. So if I could replace that with, some of these digital assistants and just be like, broadcast to the bedroom,
That's right.
that would be, I guess, much more preferable than the old house phone.
Yeah, it's different things, different features are going to be more valuable to different people,
Right.
depending on your lifestyle and what you do. But there are so many features that are great on these things that um, you can't say, "Oh, I wouldn't like that at all."
Right.
As a matter of fact, this Lenovo device surprised me a few times with what it could do. It has an adjustment for customizing the screen when you get it, so you can choose your clock style and different things like that. But you can also choose to have a slideshow of Google Photos. The benefit to that is if you use Google Photos already and you have them all on your computer or phone, wherever you have them, they're also in the cloud. And so you just choose which photos you want to see on your screen as a screensaver, and it will scroll through those, and you can obviously change them at any time. Now, on the Google device, no, on the Amazon device, on the Echo Show, you actually had to upload your photos to Amazon to show them on the Show device. But if you've already using Google Photos, they're there for you. And I just thought that was a wonderful feature. You remember a few years ago when they had digital photos screens, and they
The like picture frames, right?
picture frames,
Right. Yeah.
digital. Yes, they still have them. As a matter of fact, I looked at some on Amazon that were $200. Well, I would buy this device for $200 because it is a perfect digital picture frame.
And there's a TV that we've been looking at for our kitchen. Just because we like, when I cook, I like to watch TV. No big deal. But there's a particular TV, and I'm trying to remember who makes it. It might be Samsung, but it's like instead of turning off, it will display photos of artwork instead. And
Right.
it's like I think it's like Samsung TV, but it's like a picture TV or something like that. But the idea that a screen doesn't just have to be this big black hole in your wall after it's done. And by the way, it's called the Frame TV. There we go. From Samsung. But this idea that, a turned off TV doesn't just have to look like a turned off TV, but it can look like something that's actually, looks good when it's off. That's actually becoming pretty important for us.
Right. Now, let me tell you something else is that I would suggest that maybe you take a look at the Fire tablet
Mm-hmm.
has what's called a show mode. And in that show mode, it has a stand and everything. It's only 10 inches. The bigger one is only 10 inches.
Right.
So it's very small as far as a TV screen. But because that runs apps, you can run almost anything on that. So in other words, I use Spectrum for my TV,
Mm-hmm.
and I can run the Spectrum app on there and pick up the tablet and take it anywhere in the house and watch TV, which is, again, very, very useful. And you don't even need to buy a whole TV to do that. And you get a
Right.
tablet too.
Right. Very, very cool.
So
And,
something to
and
consider.
yeah, no, absolutely. And obviously the holiday seasons are coming up, and that's when you really start to look and see what they have to offer because everyone wants to grab your eyeball. So they're going to, really make a push to show off their features. In like these last 5 minutes, Andy, we can, kind of talk about this article that you mentioned way at the beginning of the show, where nearly half of U.S. households will own a smart speaker by the end of 2018. And if you want to, kind of give your comment on that, is that because they're, like you said, $35, they're available? Or is it because half of households actually find them interesting? And also, to kind of throw another article that we did a couple of days ago, just to add another element to the idea of a digital assistant, BMW is going to be releasing their first car with a built-in digital assistant. So not just the home, not just a phone, but BMW, the car manufacturer, will have by default a digital assistant helping you, drive the car, navigate. It will help you, change the music or change the AC while you're driving. Basic things like that. We're seeing more and more applications for digital assistants. So, if you would.
Well, I think they are really taking over, which, as you recall, the last few months we've talked about nothing but digital assistants, where previously, I reviewed a lot of cameras, printers. I still do that, but more and more people don't use cameras because they have their cell phones, and more people are going to be using these devices just because they are so easy to use and so valuable and will be everywhere. One thing I should say about this Lenovo Smart Display is that it does everything that the Google Home device does. I don't know that we made that clear. So
Right.
not only can you play music with it, ask it questions, get up recipes and all that, but you can also control all your lights and things like that. Now, the way I understand it, and I don't have a Ring doorbell, but Ring doorbell was one of the only things that people were complaining it wasn't compatible with. But say for things like my light bulbs, now I have Philips Hue bulbs, and not only will it control my lights, but if I say, Google, turn on such and such light, and that light happens to be a color light, on the screen, I will see the brightness. I can adjust the brightness, and I can adjust the color. And one thing about the color with color lights is when you're trying to use a voice assistant, you never know what colors it understands, right? So if that you want yellow light, do you want to say, Google, change my light to gold, or change it to yellow, or change it to what do you call that light color?
Right.
And on the Google screen, on the Lenovo screen, it shows you all the colors, what color they are, and what they're named. So there's a tomato color, a pumpkin color, a coral color. It was amazing to me to see all these different colors that you could just tap or tell the device to change the color of the bulbs. And I guess that's what I'm getting at by saying that this device adds an added dimension to the Google Home Assistant or to Alexa. It just adds another dimension. Sometimes things that you don't expect to see or to find can come up on this thing, and it's interesting.
Yeah, and hey, that's what happens when you add a screen, is that for a lot of these applications, you think, well, I do them without a screen and they're perfectly fine. And then someone adds a screen and they say, well, since it's there, we can do something with it. And so obviously, not much time left to really get into anything else. But I will say that Lenovo the Lenovo Smart Display, as far as other and I'm going to separate it from the strictly speakers, but those with like a screen and a digital assistant. How would you kind of compare it? Like, is it something that's worthy of the Amazon Show or the Google? I think Google has one too. I mean, where does it kind of rank within there? Is it good enough?
Well, it's good enough. It's definitely good enough. This Lenovo is the first one to come out, other than the Echo Show. And I think that for my purposes anyway, as far as design, screen capabilities, it just blows the Echo Show out of the water. So I would buy this if I was into the Google ecosystem. I would definitely buy this over the Echo Show. As far as how it compares to other devices with screens, the JBL has just come out. I haven't had a chance to totally look at it. I didn't like the design of it terribly, but it certainly should sound better because it's got some better speakers. Wait, Sony's got one coming out. LG's got one coming out. I did see the LG at CES.
Yeah, I am, and hey, that's another great part about what it is that you do here is that you covered them from the beginning, and now we're about to see the flood, the deluge of all these different smart speakers. So Sandy, we're about out of time. If people want to find out more about you, your writings, your musings, where can they go?
Please visit me at compukiss.com. That's COMPUKISS.com. Love to see you come.
All right, there you go. And everyone will have a link to that in the show notes. And thank you for joining us here on Computer America. If you missed any part of today's show, feel free to check out the podcast wherever podcasts are heard. And hey, maybe even listen to us on your smart speaker. And until next time, tomorrow on the program, we are scheduled to have, let me go ahead and check this. Tomorrow on the show, we are scheduled to have a company called Red Lock Inc. And we're going to be talking all about their product, what they do. Looks like cloud security. It's going to be interesting, trust me. Everyone, we'll be back tomorrow. Have a great day. Bye-bye.